Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Barrens Chat podcast. I'm Saad, and with me tonight is my co-host Guck. This is a podcast about World of Warcraft by two guys who play it. Guck, it's been kind of a slow week. Christmas is just over a week away. WoW Classic is getting ready to ramp up into BWL's release, and retail is waiting patiently for 8.3. How did the week go? Are you finding that so many people are farming honor that the rewards aren't worth going for right now because it's so hard to rank up, or is it still a pretty good experience?
Yeah, I would say those two things aren't. I think they're both true, and they're not necessarily exclusive. I personally do really enjoy the battlegrounds. Having access to something new is a very welcome breath of fresh air in Classic. Even if you're doing Warsong Gulch or Alterac Valley, either way, if you're in a BG, it's a fun new system that you're going to be enjoying no matter what you're doing. However, with the honor system, I do think that you're kind of competing with a huge swath of people, a lot of which are just coming back for BGs, and then the rest of them are people who've been raiding and are now adding in BGs to their schedule. I would say, as far as honor gains are concerned, you're not going to get too much of a relative gain. You're definitely going to get a ton of honor, and you're going to rank up some, but it's not going to be as considerable an amount of ranking up as it would be if you spend that same amount of time in the BGs, let's say a couple weeks from now. The one thing that you will be getting that a lot of people are going for is reputation. So your reputation gains will be great. That's something that doesn't really matter. It's not really a relative scale, but your honor rank will be a relative scale. So now that BGs are available and everyone's really pushing their honor, you may not get as far as you would have back in vanilla. But yeah, I mean, it's a great system. BGs are one of the best things in WoW. So it's been a ton of fun regardless of the end result.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I was thinking about like farming honor right now and how hard it would be to just get like rank 7 because literally every single person playing Classic is probably doing their weekly clear of Molten Core and Onyxia and literally just spamming Battlegrounds, which is an awesome way to play the game. It's probably the most fun you're going to have in Classic, but the fact that like the rewards you get out, at least like the PvP honor rewards that you get out of it are so small because everybody's doing it, so it's hard to rank up and it's hard to keep pace with those no lifers, I guess. I mean, it would kind of make it hard for me to grind it. I haven't grinded it. I did log on and mess around in one, but I don't even expect to make scout. So it I think it's cool. I think it's awesome that everybody's participating, and then like there's like a little bit of drama between streamers who meet each other in pre-mades. I think that's always good for the game, and it's fun to watch. But I really haven't tuned in to much Classic other than that.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. The no-lifers of the past are currently the WoW-lifers of today. The people who actually make a living off of playing WoW, people on Twitch, people who make YouTube content, whatever it is, those people have the highest leg up because not only is their job essentially to play WoW, but they're doing, this new system that everyone is obsessed with. So those people, I think, really are going to ascend to the top. Then you have the standard no-lifer, the people who are actually unemployed or they're students or whatever it is, and they have a ton of time and they spend all of that time in WoW. They're going to be the next highest ones on that rung. So I would say for now, especially in Classic, you're not only dealing with no-lifers and WoW-lifers, but you're dealing with people who have their nostalgia goggles still on. They may have played, enough to get a taste of the classic WoW experience. Maybe they're above 40. A lot of those people are going to come back too. So there's going to be a ton of people all going for honor, all in the same way, which is good because, I mean, you're going to get into BGs, but the other side of that is the Alterac Valley queue might be up to 10 minutes. And that means there's a ton of people out there also pushing that same amount of honor that you're going for.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to think of it. Are the queues pretty much instant for you, would you say? Are there enough people doing it? Is it now, and also are there battle groups? Like, is it, or is everybody just in one battle group?
There are battle groups. A few of my battlegrounds, the groups I've gotten into weren't pre-made, and I was with a variety of different servers.
You getting a lot of victories, or is the alliance crushing you?
It goes back and forth. Honestly, you get a good mix of games where it's like people are actually trying to contest the flag in Warsong Gulch, and then there's those games where as soon as there's a point, you'll see one team just camp up in the graveyard and they give up and they want to get out of it as soon as possible to get into a winning instance. So you get a good variety. I would say of the matches where we actually try to go back and forth, it's been, probably 50-50.
Yeah, that could I could see how that could be fun, and also like as long as you have a healer, you're probably shredding people in there, being a probably a pretty decent geared warrior, right? With all your clears.
And that's really kind of, I think, what determines whether you win or lose. Because in these non-pre-made tens, for Warsong, you're basically at the whim of your healer if you get one, and then whichever team has a healer, if the other one doesn't, the healer team probably wins. If both teams have a healer, then it kind of depends on your composition and how you guys are kind of moving through the map. But yeah, I mean, it's just a ton of fun to have something new, right? In Classic, we've been really just going through the same old instances. And if you really want to get cynical about it, these are 15-year-old instances that everyone has been going through. So getting into some more organized PvP is a very welcome change.
Yeah, you can't beat that. I actually have rated battlegrounds night scheduled for tonight. Getting into that, hopefully, I think it's going to be more casual than competitive. Although I still expect some good fights. Really pumped to see how that goes. I haven't done RBGs since probably Legion, and those were a ton of fun.
Yeah, so you have actually been spending a little bit more time in the retail world. What are some of the things in retail that are currently at least catching your attention?
So I joined a new guild which has a good active community. They schedule events other than just the typical raiding events, which is cool to be involved into. So tonight will be my first night. I signed up for the rated battlegrounds, and tonight will be my first night of that. I'm really looking forward to that. And I've actually met and had conversations with a couple of the people. Like the community wasn't like that hard to get into. I've done probably 5 or 6 keys with the guild. I didn't have to pug a key this week, and it's just been overall a good experience so far. I'm not rating right now this tier because they're doing Mythic and they have their roster, but uh, I was told that I would be invited to the heroic tier in Nyalotha, so really pumped about that. That's actually awesome and good communication from the leadership, which is something that I've always looked forward to in a guild. And mostly it's just been a little bit of mount farming and basically just doing my emissaries. My neck is almost capped, which will mean a little more gold in my pocket with that extra AP that I'm gonna get. And just kind of running around the world, been farming. I made a investment with a little bit of my gold and took a risk. I bought a bunch of anchor wheat off the auction house in hopes that the price of flasks and pots are going to go up with the release of the new raid. And I think they're pretty low right now, and I have a ton of standard herbs stacked up, so the anchor wheat will help me make all those. And I'm really just getting pumped for 8.3. It looks like there's going to be a lot of fun. I've been thinking about grinding essences on another character or two because 8.3 is going to be alt friendly, but I still can't bring myself to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and Preach was talking about this in one of his earlier videos about how essentially the barrier to 8.3 is really going to be getting your essences and then not just getting your essences but ranking them up through those 8.2 mechanics. We've seen some blue posts from PTR builds, and the current one has some changes to the essences, but it doesn't have anything that's really indicative of changing the way that you get these essences or ranking them up. There's certainly no mention of cross character sharing of essences. That's probably not going to happen. I do like that they are doing some changes. I mean, the basic changes you'll see. The condensed life force. This is one of the very popular DPS essences. It's gotten an increased cast time. That they're saying it's to resolve a bug. You can check out the patch notes about that. World Vein Resonance, the one that you get from the island expeditions, is getting a pretty solid buff. you get 300% value for 18 seconds, which is a buff from 50% value for 10 seconds. So that's a pretty massive buff for your rank 3 World Vein. Then there's some changes to the healers. There's going to be some healer meta changes going into 8.3. There's probably going to be some tank meta changes. A lot of people are talking about blood DKs having a resurgence. The fact that they've got a lot of great magic resistance. Blood DKs are the cooldown kings. They have a ton of great utility. I loved maining my Blood DK back in Legion, so I'm excited to see that change if that happens in the tanking world. If not, still got the Brewmaster Monk, who, despite some nerfs going into 8.3, I think will still be a very solid choice. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what 8.3 brings.
Yeah, it looks like the class balance is probably excuse me, class balance will probably be as close as it's been like all expansion, and that goes for all three roles. And I think it'll be cool to watch the world first race and see something other than a double disc priest like doing like 50k DPS and like healing like 70k HPS, like just something ridiculous that these guys are able to pull out two healing bosses. So that is one of the huge reasons why I love watching that. It's just these awesome players playing their characters at like the absolute peak of their ability. And it'll be cool too because like it doesn't look like there will be class stacking. I'm sure as these top tier guilds get into these boss fights and they find ways that they can avoid mechanics or breeze through mechanics easier, you're going to see more and more class stacking. But going into it, it looks like a wide open race, which I think will be awesome to see. It does look like Shaman are going to play a huge role in at least a couple of the boss fights, so look out for that. That'll be cool to see. And, with the nerfs to the WoW development team just announced nerfs to Mythic Eternal Palace on Orgazoa, Queen's Court, and Queen Ashara. So making those bosses a little easier to kill for those guilds going for cutting edge. I would say if you're probably not already on Queen Ashara, getting cutting edge is going to be tough. But just kind of reducing the threshold, getting more guilds to get that, and I think that's cool to see. And really, I don't know how many guilds are still trying to progress on those bosses, but good for them for continuing the fight and pushing their goals.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think nerfs like this will really push the needle in any direction for WoW retail's population. I mean, it's really important to get these nerfs in just to reward the people who have been really dedicated this whole time. The only people who would really benefit from the Orgazoa, Queen's Court, and Ajara nerfs are people who are currently still doing progression, right? So that means that through Classic, through the ups and downs of BFA, there are people still raiding, and they probably deserve their cutting edge just for their perseverance alone, right? Queen Ajara is getting like a 20% nerf on her ward mechanic, so that's pretty big. We're seeing 5% health reductions on different things. Orgazoa's health is reduced. They didn't include the exact meters, but it's going to be, I think, enough to reward the current progression raiders. It's probably not going to get people to come back. Maybe a few guilds that were on a brief hiatus and they were stuck on one of these three bosses, they may try to come back and do it after these nerfs come in. But we'll see what happens. I think everyone's still going to be holding out for 8.3.
Yeah, and even then, these changes that Blizzard's making are either going to be too little or too late. A lot of people are upset with the Essence system, like you said, and unfortunately, BFA was such a flop. It looks like this patch is going to be awesome, and it's going to be friendly for all types of players. And unfortunately, it just looks like people, at least people that I've spoken to, I'm sure that you've spoken to, are already done with Battle for Azeroth and just looking forward to Shadowlands.
Yeah, the people that I know who even still play retail are doing AP catch up on a different class that they want to raid in 8.3, or they're doing Essence catch up for the same reason. There's not a lot of people that I know that are currently engaging with systems in BFA outside of pushing Mythic Plus. And again, I mean, Mythic Plus is great, but the reason that people do it is largely a third party reason. I mean, you want to do Mythic Plus to have a high Raider IO, which if that didn't exist, I don't think people would push keys as much. So I don't know how much that is to say, Blizzard's not responsibility, but how much that is, uh, how much credit Blizzard should get for that. Um, so yeah, outside of Mythic Plus, I don't know a lot of people who really play retail.
Yeah, I know, like, especially right now around the holidays, I would expect it to stay, somewhat low key. I would expect a lot of guilds and a lot of people to not be raiding. So it might be a good week to just get into pugs for the people that kind of stay around where they are, still around the internet. Maybe like me that don't have much of a social life, might be more desirable to have a pug if you don't have a high IO score and you're not traveling to see family or anything like that. Put yourself out there, try to get into a pug. It's too late to get into the Firelands time walking that everybody just did, but Winter's Veil is up, and I think you can get the minion of Grumpus if you get lucky and you don't have that mount already or you want to sell it. I think it sells for a pretty healthy amount of gold, especially during the off season when it's not the winter time and a lot of those mounts are floating around. So keep your eyes out for that. And really, it's just right now WoW is essentially just a casual catch-up game, and hopefully 8.3 hit the ground running, and get yourself into Nyalotha, get yourself ready, play one of those off classes that you haven't seen. Like maybe Feral Druid will be pretty good. You don't know what's going to happen with these new class changes. Maybe you're coming back from a break and because you're upset because Feral Druids were bad, and maybe they're good now. Farm your essences and see. Unfortunately, like if you haven't done your essence grinds, your character's essentially useless if you don't have rank 3. Like you can't keep up, and it's really unfortunate for the game right now, but that's where it's at.
Yeah, and I would say one of the things that you're doing that you mentioned as far as gold making, that's another really good thing to do. Preemptively stocking up on raid supplies, or like what Sod's doing, loading up on the mats. That's a great way to make money if you want to sell the mats, or you can just buy your raid consumables and stockpile them so that you don't have to buy them at a higher price. All of those are great opportunities for you to make gold. And then there's also the classic, relatively casual way to go about playing WoW. And, BFA might suck, but you can still go back to any of the other expansions and get some cool transmog. And I think transmogging and getting gold are those other things that really kind of keep people playing retail. So yeah, I mean, if you want to find new reasons to play retail, they're out there. You just have to want to do those things. I mean, making gold and transmog, those are always going to be there.
Yeah, and Korak's Revenge is still up for like another 2.5 to 3 weeks. So if you do want to level a character, maybe you want to get the Heritage armor, get that character to 60, and then start pushing the AV. It's a fun way to play if you take the PvP fun. Maybe you want to defend a tower or something, just make it a pain for the opposing faction. I had a ton of fun doing that, and it's good. Like if you have two monitors, you just want to throw on Netflix and binge a show. It's nice to like half pay attention to AV where there's 40 other people and maybe your attention isn't 100% needed, and also be able to watch a show that you want to see, or a movie, or what, or maybe you're doing work on the other monitor or something like that. That's how I had a lot of fun leveling up all my characters, and I'm sure a lot of people are still probably grinding away until January 7th.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So January 7th, that's going to be 8.3, right?
Well, that is the end of the anniversary event. So there is speculation that it's going to come out in the first week of January or the end of January, beginning of February. So who knows how far they want to overlap the release of BWL, which I think is the first week of January, right?
I'm not sure. I would bet that we would see 8.3 before we see BWL because we just got Battlegrounds. So I would say hopefully if the schedule is kind of accelerated to a point where people are going to be able to jump right back in, first week of January we get 8.3, maybe first week of February, last week of January we get a BWL. I would love to see that. That would give me, it would give people who want to play both almost a month of 8.3 before BWL comes in. And then at that point, you're going to have two separate raids that you get to enjoy every week. So, make sure your time is managed appropriately. Don't double stack too much. The good thing with Classic is that if you have a competent guild, you guys can probably get through your raids 2 days a week. You get 1 day to do Oni MC, another day in BWL. You can have a retail guild that raids twice a week, and that should be enough. But I mean, that's 4 days of raiding, so you want to really manage your time appropriately with that. I know I'm going to have some difficulty with that, but I'm excited.
Yeah, definitely. It'll definitely give you a lot of stuff to do if you're playing both versions of the game. I don't see them releasing both at the same time, so maybe you're right because they did release Battlegrounds more recently on Classic and people have been waiting for 8.3 for so long. Maybe we do see 8.3 before we see BWL, which would be good for me as somebody who's been playing retail and like you for somebody who wants to play both. And you know, whether or not that happens, I don't know. I would imagine they would try to release it as soon as possible. I would imagine the patch has been ready for probably quite a while, and maybe a week or two after the holidays, we'll see Nyalotha.
All right, that's all the stuff that I have for this week. You got anything else you want to bring up?
No, that's it. We did try to have an announcement this week. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. The communication wasn't there. We'll keep working, try to bring new content, maybe a guest or two on. And thank you for listening. Remember to go to the website, like the podcast on Apple Podcasts, barrenschat.podbean.com. Thanks for the love.